Well, hi there, everybody. This is Bonfree from L World. Thanks for checking out my video. So this video is going to be a little bit more involved than some of my videos because I'm going to dig into some topics that were, in a sense, brought to my attention, I guess, through a communication from a subscriber. And that player had a question for me based on some of my past videos about aging up and what he should do in his particular situation. So the question is, I'm in. This is from the subscriber. I'm in industrial age, and I ultimately want to camp in FE, and I maybe want to make a stop in between, right? So I'm kind of summarizing the request, and there are a number of implications to doing this, and I'm going to get into um, really this is kind of I don't know if there's business people here, but kind of a SWOT analysis of this, and I'm going to touch on some things that will lead you to do research on other things. But I'm hoping this video can be a funnel, and we can look at the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, which of course are ever present in this game, to how you grow yourself, and how in some cases you need to be careful depending on what your strategy is. And I think one of the reasons players watch my videos is because they're like, I'm not even sure what the opportunities are. I'm not even sure what uh, amazing blessings I can get from doing certain things. So first I need to figure out what my possible blessings are, and then upside, and then I have to figure out how and if I want to get there. There's so many different ways to approach this game. That's what makes it, I think, enticing, but it also makes it it can be a little stressful. And so I'm not going to be showing my game screen, because this video is about strategy and about gotchas and what the deal is with exploring ahead. So fundamentally, we're talking about, should I explore ahead beyond my current era on the continent map? Okay. And I'm going to touch on some other things. For example, there's a beginner's guide that I want to reference, and I'll put links for all of this in the in the comments area, description area. So uh, there is also something some of you may have heard of, which is capturing hover tanks while you're in industrial age. Hover tanks, obviously, being uh, the most really amazingly overpowered unit in the game. They do have weaknesses. They do have strengths, mostly strengths. Especially if you can grab some future era units and capture them. They're referred to as captured units, by doing a whole bunch of real specific things, which I'm not going to totally go into on this video because all this work has been done. And there are some great videos to help you deep dive into this topic in particular. So there you go. If you didn't know about capturing hover tanks in industrial, now you know. It's out there, it's possible, and you too can do that. And then there's also this really, really cool beginner's guide to the game, which, even if you're not a beginner, might be worth going through, because it's very thorough and it's all here. So there's a lot of things. Now, the capturing of uh, hovers is not in here, I don't think, because it's sort of a very unique way to play the game. In fact, if you're past the point of this, if you're in SAT, one thing you can consider is, starting another world if you're kind of getting bored with the game, and take this approach. Because I'll tell you, there's some players I've come across in our guilds that, they're sitting in industrial with hover tanks, and they're just hammering GBG. I mean, just killing it, because their attrition can get so high because of the fact that they're their opponent strength has to do with the fact that they're in IA, or sorry, in industrial, not IA's Iron Age, but usually. But anyway, moving on. If you can be in industrial and use these hovers, you can just have a huge strike advantage. So anyway, I also want to talk about back to moving ahead, fighting ahead, negotiating ahead. We're going to talk about the opportunities and some of the gotchas you're going to run into, because there are some weird ones, and you're going to be like, I don't get what's going on. So I'm going to touch on all of those things. This is probably going to be a little bit of a lengthy video, and maybe you want to come back a couple times and check it out. This is a really interesting graphic that I found, and I'm going to link this on the wiki. And so the idea here, one of the benefits, I'll give you an overview of what I see as the benefits of fighting ahead, right? That is the wrong notepad. It's this one right here. So, okay. So you're going to get rewards. If you choose to move ahead, let's say you're in industrial and you want to fight all the way or negotiate your way to OF. Okay, there's a hard stop in OF. Well, there's actually multiple what they call blockers. Okay, so there are some quests that will come up, because those quests are going to get in the way. They're going to get in the way of your recurring quests. Okay, because when you start battling and negotiating ahead on the map, you start exploring. I'll just say ahead, you're in for some treats, and you're in for some captured units from higher eras. You're in for goods from higher eras, and due to power creep in the game recently, guess what? I think you could probably, battle a lot further ahead than maybe even OF, which, several years ago was not really the case. You kind of hit the wall in OF, at least with battling. And God knows you probably don't want to do the negotiating, because it's going to be crazy expensive. And, negotiating, speaking of goods, that's where we talk about one of the downsides of going this route of moving ahead, and I'll explain that. So when you get into, let's say you're exploring the map ahead of, industrial, and then you get into AF, well, you're going to run into some things that you probably haven't seen before. There's a Prometheum, there's a special resource that shows up in AF, and then another on top of the AF resource, another one shows up in OF, and that's called orichalcum or calcium, or people call it different things. So anyway, that's not a big deal. It's just that you're going to come across some sectors that have like this purple diamond looking thing, and you're like, I don't know what to do with this. What is this? And you're clicking on it, and you're like, it's not doing anything. Anyway, you won't be able to access the benefits of the special resource until you're in that era. Doesn't matter. Just keep going, keep moving ahead, get the benefits of moving through the map in advance. This is assuming you're not going to sit and just stay in one place and get really buff, say, in one specific era, and you get your CF, your Chateau Frontenac, way up, and then you just run recurring quests, and you become like, you could be like an Iron Age goods magnate, if you do that, because Iron Age goods are so constrained, and you can literally trade them straight across for SAT goods in many cases. Anyway, that's a whole other topic. But if you are moving ahead, this the advice I gave the subscriber when he asked me this yesterday was, yes, I always recommend going ahead on the map, but hang on, because there's a few things you want to consider, because you're in the area you're in industrial right now, which gives you this cool option of capturing hovers if you want to do it. Okay, but also, what's another benefit of moving ahead? Well, it's right here. Land, what we call land tiles, but they're expansions technically. So let's say you're here in industrial, and you're like, hey, I want a bunch of tiles. Well, cool. You're going to get them if you keep moving ahead. You're not going to get the tech tree expansions, because you're not running that tech tree. You're staying in this use case in industrial, and then you're going to be getting the campaign expansions. Okay. So, and then premium expansions just have to do with you spending diamonds. You know, it unlocks more expansions you can spend on diamonds as you go into those eras. So, what we're looking at is specifically campaign expansions. Okay. So, I added this up, and if you're able to get all the way through OF, which you can, it's totally possible. You can get into VF even. You're getting about 26. You're unlocking about 26 expansions from IA, up to OF. I mean, anybody can do the math. I probably did it wrong because I've been like all over the place with the research, but roughly 25. Okay. So again, huge benefit there. That's always the reason that I have, as I've done different empires, I've always wanted to move ahead in the map so that I get those expansions, because that is just especially now we have all these event buildings coming out, and we need real estate. So that's a big consideration and a huge plus. Just in OF alone, I thought this was an interesting bit of data. There are 70 provinces in the OF continent map. I mean, it's just endless. It feels endless. It's unreal. And I'm going to explain now what this idea of a stop or a blocker is. What it is if you are going through and you're moving ahead on the map, you're going to have these quests that come up, right? Because those quests, that show up over here, are going to displace your recurring quests if you have any of them. Sometimes you have one available depending on the research of your tech tree in your age. But once you're done researching the tech tree in your current age, and if you stayed in your current era map, you should be able to get back to all 3 recurring quests in these slots over here that show up. That way, you can do things like, when you spend FP, or, you polish a number of buildings, etc., the ones we all know about. If you have your Chateau Frontenac aged up, you're going to get a bonus on, whatever you get, whether it's, goods or coins or supplies, whatever. Well, that lends itself to staying where you're at, right? It's kind of more of a farming mentality. Like, hey, I'm going to hang out. Now, I think farming in the future era would be a good idea, because most people like to camp there for a long time. But you're not going to have all your quests in future if you've, moved ahead through the map, right? And one thing that really pissed me off, I'll just point this out as a quick side, when I was in earlier years, I think it was in OF, and I went through Sam. I got all the way through Sam, and this was before we had all these crazy buffs that we have now. This was like years ago. And I only got one expansion out of that whole deal, and that was hard. That was a very, very tough continent to get through at the time, being in OF and not having any creep buffs. So anyway, just want to point that out, because you're not doing any favors. I believe I'm trying to remember. I think there are captured units as you go through. But I mean, VF sucks. Like, the units in VF are just trash. They're as bad as the ones in AF. And so I like the units in OF, the fighting units. That's a whole other topic, which I've covered. But that was like one of the first recordings I ever did in this, doing this YouTube thing like 4 years ago. So I should probably revisit that. But anyhow, this is a good thing to stare at. Okay, so look at that. Let's get back to the SWAT of going ahead. You're going to hit a blocker if we go this direction and you're moving ahead, called persuasion. And you can Google this and look it up. The quest is to produce 10 crayfish. This is an OF thing. So this blocker, what this is going to do is stop requests, map-related quests, from being available to you. Okay? It doesn't mean, this is important, it doesn't mean you can't keep moving ahead deeper and unlocking, land tiles and things like that. It just means you're not going to get any of the goodies related with all those unlocks that you keep doing in the form of quests until you get into OF and you can actually produce 10 stupid crayfish. Okay. So, you know, that's a lot of ground to cover by the time you get to OF. I mean, my friend that is in industrial, he's got all these unlocks to do before he hits that. And that means he's going to be getting, diamonds and goods and all the stuff, right? Just because he's moving through the map and getting these quests. So if he says, "Hey, I want to camp in the future," as he goes through these eras, he's going to end up on the map. He's going to end up collecting resources and units, in some cases, from that era. Sorry if I sound like I'm repeating myself. This can be a big thing to wrap your head around if you haven't done a lot of this kind of thing. So anyway, this is huge, and sometimes I save the good stuff until the middle of the video, and then I get these people making these comments, "But you didn't say," and I'm like, "Well, yeah, you didn't watch the video because I did say." But anyway, here we are. Do not, I repeat it loudly, do not research all the texts in all previous in the eras as you go through them. I know it may be a little late for some of you to hear this advice, but there are going to be texts that don't. Here, I'll go in here and show you. There's going to be texts that have dead end research related to them. Okay, so if we go here to research, and I go back to let's go to industrial where my friend is. Okay, so right here, none of these are dead end texts. He's got to research all this crap. So in Indy, you have to research everything because there's nothing just sitting there on its own. But let's go back to, I don't know, Colonial. Let's see. See here. So in Colonial, there's these, if you are going to build, and this is going to apply to any era ahead of this. There are other eras that have, these dead end texts. Don't research anything you don't need to. So if you need to be producing porcelain because that's the resource that you have from your continent map, and you're going to use non-event, non-special buildings to produce your goods, and you're going to build like a porcelain factory to produce your goods, then yeah, you got to unlock this. If there's other ways to not unlock this, don't. Don't unlock tar and wires if you're not going to produce them anyway, right? Now, mine are unlocked because I've, garnered my own advice and I've left some of this stuff unresearched. I've moved through the eras and then I've been able to fulfill some of these stops that you get, these blockers later in the game. So in PE, again, you can't leave anything hanging. Here's one. So I actually left this one. I was like, wait, what am I doing? So I still have one in modern era. There's one research. And I'll tell you, the thing that sucks is sometimes there will be a quest when you're in that era to like unlock spectator sports. I'm not saying there is one for this. It's just as an example. And you're like, damn it, I don't want to unlock that, And so you don't. But that quest is going to freaking sit there if you can't abort it. Now, if it's a side quest, then abort it. Like, who cares, But if it's a main quest, if it's the story quest, you're kind of screwed. So here's another one, PME, waste management, sitting there waiting to be, researched, right? It's not unlocked. So that's just an example of what I'm talking about. You do that as much as you can if you want to move ahead in the continent map. Again, always recommended, but just know what you're getting into. If you are going to, camp and just hang out and be like a producer of stuff, then, don't do anything I'm talking about really. But I'm going to link a couple things. I'm going to quickly touch on them. And obviously I've discussed this with other high level players in the game before I did this video, that we don't really see any downside in moving ahead on the map other than the elimination of taking advantage of a Chateau Frontenac and running recurring quests. In fact, I would be as bold to say, since, I'm your guy who just loves to delete GBs right now, I would not feed a Chateau. I would delete it. If you're going to go this way and you've got like a level 10 Chateau, or you're like, hey, I was really doing the RQ thing, but now I'm doing this, kill that thing, because it's not that expensive to rebuild in the big picture. And when you land where you're going to land, think how much benefit you could get from that space that the CF is taking up. And you're not running RQs anyway. I mean, not to any measurable advantage, okay? Because you're getting good goodies from moving through the campaign map, right? You're getting other kinds of prizes and diamonds and things like that. Plus, the CF doesn't even address all that stuff. So it can't, because of what it's designed to do with your recurring quests, which you're really only blessed with if you're in your current era. We covered that, and you're kind of on your current map, etc. So there was previously a major downside that really sucked. And since that time, Inno's taken it away. So this is like the golden age of playing the game, because there used to be quests that would come up in event quests that would say, unlock a sector on the map. And there was no choice to like do something else. And you can be kind of screwed if you had to do that, and anyway, not a thing anymore. So don't have to worry about that. And so the pages I have here that I'm going to give you, let's talk a little bit now about capturing these, the good and the bad, opportunity, the threat, is you really have to do some very specific things in order to pull this off. So thankfully, this person in the Reddit did a kind of a summary of what Uber Nerd and Mooing Cat have done in the past, but he kind of like distilled it. So this is a good summary for you to decide without having to watch a bunch of videos. Not that I'm saying don't go watch their videos. This tells you what you're getting into if you want to capture these hover tanks. I honestly think it's a great opportunity. I think it's super cool. I almost want to start another in another world and just do this, because I've kind of done everything else. But anyway, this particular, sorry, this is not the thread I'm talking about is this one. Sorry, my bad. This was one where these guys were talking about the good and the bad, and how can you get around the blocker, right? The persuasion blocker that I was talking about. And this one user was suggesting, oh, well, maybe I could plunder crayfish from someone somehow. And I'm like, and basically that whole thing doesn't work. There's a lot of reasons it won't work, but anyway, it doesn't work. So I was just doing research on that to see, is there a documented way to get past that blocker? And there really, to my knowledge, there's not. So let's get back over. Okay, so how to get 4 hover tanks in Industrial Age simplified. Okay, so Forge Emperor posted this. Oh, and by the way, it flags an NSFW if you go in there and just like, I don't know, I have no idea why, because there's, nothing bad going on here or controversial. It's just talking about this nerdy, dumb game we play. So anyway, it summarizes. So it's like a how-to. If you fail a step, there's some definite no's, which is like, there's a truth or dare quest right here in PME in the story quest line. Do not complete or abort your choice, truth or dare, when you reach it. So that's a side quest that you can abort, which makes it even more tricky to not do. And then, when you get to the FE map, do not scout Sequoia, Sulfa, and in the CE map. So again, not going into all this, but it's some real specific shit that you got to be aware of. And then this is the beginner's guide. Again, I don't think there's anything wrong with, RTFM sometimes, and go back and just peruse this. you may or may not get anything out of it, but who knows? You never know, because the wiki is insane. Like, I see other players all the time talk about, well, not the wiki really, it's the forums. The forums are insane. I mean, the Reddit wikis are pretty good, but the forums are really the authority on the game, right? This is really like the manual, and it's real specific. Plus, if you have questions, you can go out and interact in the forums. I mean, it's here, and I think many players don't know about that. So that's why I brought it up, because it's like, well, I don't know. There's nothing documented. Like, oh my God, there's so much documented. You just gotta kind of do the Google thing. Okay, this is another weird little nugget. I go to ChatGPT and ask it things about Forge all the time. Like, I have to set a context, like in the game Forge of Empires, tell me about this or how this works. It has a ridiculous amount of knowledge about Forge. At the same time, it's not in many cases going to be as specific as something like this. So again, I'll link this, because that can be half the battle, is just not only knowing these things exist, but finding them. So yeah, so that's that. And then I'll also link, this how you can count how many expansions you're going to get, things like that, and then your costs and such. So there's a lot of good data. Again, this is a very data driven game, whether you like data or not, and it can bite you, and you're going to end up interacting with data no matter what. It's just kind of how you end up getting there. It's a different journey for different players, but yeah, I hope this has been helpful. I think, let me just review before I shut off everything, that I covered what I wanted to. Got the links, downsides, that nasty 70 provinces in OF. That interesting bit of trivia, they rolled out when OF was the newest, highest era back in 2017. They literally rolled it out in two phases over 2 years. Well, actually, sorry, it was 6 phases, I think, over 1 year than the next year. So basically in 2017, they were, like March, they released the first part of it, which gave players part of this ridiculously huge map that just never ever ends. And then, there is one more thing I was going to talk about related to this and sectors. But anyway, then throughout the year of 2017, they released more of the continent, and then finally in 2018, it was really like part two, because there was some talk in this is I don't know if this is true, but there was talk of like, hey, this is going to be like the last era of the game or some shit like that. So they like just kind of strung it out, and so it's weird because it is the only era in the game that has two types of each fighting unit. So it has, two ranged units, two fast units, etc., which is one of the most intriguing aspects of it. And some of those units are extremely useful, um, especially fighting up into like VF. Um, the eels are insane because of some of the advantages they have in battle. So anyway, the last thing I was going to say is that I really believe if you are pushing the continent map, it is a good use of diamonds. This is my opinion. Some of you may not be diamond players. Some of you may not ever. I'm only a 200% sale diamond player. Take my money at 200% because I'm going to get like 39,000 diamonds, for $100. By the way, you get more diamonds if you go and buy on a browser than you do on the app, on your phone or your iPad or your tablet. So if you ever get the 200% offer and you're like, I'm down, take my money, go to a browser, log in, and buy the diamonds there, because you will get more for the same price. This game, for some reason, really, really favors browser. So I believe that at 50 diamonds per sector to unlock it and not have to wait 24 hours, per, I mean, it's going to take forever. So there have been days, like I remember, like there's been, Saturdays in my past where I'm like, okay, I'm going to sit here for, 2 hours and I'm going to I count the sectors. I'm like, okay, so what? I'm going to spend 1,000 diamonds, but I'm going to move all the way through this era, like right now. And that's the way that I was able to do it without getting too frustrated that it was just taking too long. And it was a way to kind of like I could reward my time invested using the diamonds. But yeah, I mean, 50 a sector, it's not going to kill you, even if you saved up, just from getting diamonds in GE and the other ways you get them. I mean, of course, they've mostly taken them away in Battlegrounds. Thank you very much, because I'm sure they could see, hey, we're carving out of our own profit model by giving away so many diamonds in Battlegrounds. So they mostly took that away. But anyway, I hope this was helpful. I mean, this may end up causing you more questions than really you have answers for, but now you have answers for some others. And I mean, just talking about this more sort of macro topic that reaches into micro concepts just gets me excited about the game again. It's like a very nerdy, and I'm not sure what that's all about, but I am a nerd. So, I'm an IT guy, and I own an IT business and IT security, things like that, and have for my whole career mostly. And it's something that gets my brain working, and going back into some of these things, I was reminded by some of my recent comments that I needed to, or not needed, but hey, would you please maybe talk about some of the earlier stuff? Because yeah, you're in SAT, but and I try to talk about mostly more classic types of things. I like that's more my preference. Yes, I've been talking about tactical shit like deleting GBs, but classic things never age in a game. There's contemporary concerns that power creep, blah blah blah. But I think classic things are what stay with you throughout the whole game. Like, there are going to be jackasses in this game. There's going to be great people you meet. I mean, I've made multiple real life friends in this game over the years that I've actually hung out with in real life, and it's been really cool. So, anyway, that's what I got. My voice is starting to go. I don't know why. I think it's just the weather here in Arizona. It's like allergy season and all that. So, thanks for watching. Please subscribe, tell your friends, and we will see you on the next one. Now I got to figure out how to turn this thing off because I don't edit. I hate editing.